Hello, hello, hello. I'm Dennis, the Married Man's Coach. I help you get more of what you want out of your marriage without sacrificing your manhood or your masculinity. Today's topic is about attraction and what to do if your wife's not attracted to you anymore. So before we get started, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff. So I got good news and bad news for you. The good news is that every marriage suffers an attraction problem at some point or the other. That's a normal part of being married. And the more good news is that you can learn to overcome that. You can learn to change how you act and talk so that you're more attractive to your wife. And a final piece of good news is that in this video, I'm going to lay out a very clear strategy on how to do that. The bad news is that it's going to take more than this one strategy. In order to bring attraction back in your marriage, you have to do a major overhaul of yourself, of the way you think, of the way you act, the way you speak. But that is for another video. So today's attraction strategy is based in psychology, as a lot of this stuff is that I talk about. And it's called the peak end rule. The peak end rule. The peak end rule. And what does this peak end rule mean? The peak end rule is the framework, the theory that human beings remember things by the peak emotional moment of a moment and the end of the moment. Now you could say that there's like the primary serial effect too, so that the beginning of an event is also part of shaping that memory. But in psychology, there's very often like two dominant theories of something, and neither one of them is considered to be true all the time. So peak end rule, memories are shaped by the emotional peak of an experience and the end of the experience. So what does this have to do with you, your wife, and the attraction that she doesn't feel for you anymore? So in order to be attractive, you need to be strategic with your entrances and your exits. Becoming attractive again to your wife is a big part of that, is becoming aware of how you act and consciously changing how you act. And so the basic idea here is that using the peak end rule is that you want to create healthy memories with your wife. You want your wife to have good, positive memories of you. And I would say that one of the factors that go into a loss of attraction is that we're not strategic with how we create memories with our spouse, with our wives. We're not strategic in setting ourselves up for success in how they create memories about us. So the peak end rule, how are we going to apply the peak end rule? So this is a framework that you can use on pretty much any situation. And you have to think about it this way, that your relationship with your wife is not one long continuous thing. It's many tiny moments broken up and chained together. That's how your marriage is. It's how your relationship with anyone or anything is. It's not just one thing. It's many things chopped up into beginnings and ends, and then chained together through time, through situational proximity. So you start thinking about things in the beginning and the end, right? So if you're going to go out on a date with your wife, okay, it's an obvious beginning and the end, but also like you guys making dinner together in the kitchen, that's a beginning and an end. There's a beginning and an end to that. Or you cleaning the kitchen together, or you playing Scrabble, whatever it is that you do, there's a beginning and an end. And you could do this ad infinitum, right? You can chop up every single moment into even smaller beginnings and ends. So what do? You show up present and demonstrate greatness. demonstrate greatness. So this is being the hero of the moment. This is having an creating an emotional peak for your wife, right? So you're showing up as the hero of the moment. Maybe that means you are the guy that gets the laugh, or maybe you're the guy who's really listening and you're really listening to your wife, or you're the guy who comes in and kills the spider, whatever it might be. You're the guy who in that peak moment saves the day. And that can look like 1,000 different things. It can look like 1,000 different things. Every moment is different, but every moment, every situation has an appropriate kind of behavior, right? There are optimal ways to show up. And so once that emotional peak and you've kind of showed up and demonstrated your greatness, you're not showing off. You're not trying to get people to look at you. You're genuinely showing up and providing the right word, behavior, action at the right time. And that's being the hero of the moment. And then very shortly after that, you make an exit. You leave. And you don't just like sneak away. You're like, very clearly making an exit. And what this does is this will get your wife over time. If you deploy this strategy over time, those memories that you're making with your wife are going to be more positive. They're gonna be different shapes. They're gonna be shaped in a way that's pleasing to your wife. If you're leaving her on a high emotional moment and then you're leaving that situation, that memory is shaped by your emotional, by showing up as the hero. And you don't have to leave for long, right? You're playing Scrabble and you nail it, you tell a joke and she's laughing or whatever, and then you get up and go do something in the other room for 2 minutes. You've left. That moment's done. And so what's going to happen is when you leave, and this applies to other people too, not just your wife, but when you leave, shortly after that moment of greatness, is that your wife is going to start thinking like, wow, that was... Her mind's going to start spinning in a positive way about you. And that's a good thing. And that's how you start generating attraction. That's one strategy for this. Now, there is a warning. There is a warning. Is that it feels really good to be the hero. It feels really good to be the hero. And so what a lot of guys do, they make the mistake of being that hero in the moment, and thinking, I can do better than this. I can top this. I got it. And then that emotional peak, and it usually doesn't happen, or you're trying too hard, it just falls flat. And they don't make the right exit, so that moment isn't shaped by that emotional peak. It's shaped by whatever bluster or blunder has come after it. So if that makes sense, leave a comment down below and let me know if that makes sense. If you got any questions, I'm happy to help you. Also, if you think this is useful and interesting, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button. So so the reverse is also true. The reverse is also true. Is that emotional peaks aren't positive or negative. They're just heightened emotions. So they can be positive and they can be negative. So if you look, and what does that do, right? That's like the anti-attraction strategy. If you're doing things where you're unconsciously shaping the memories in a negative way, meaning that you are providing negative emotions as an emotional peak, and then leaving not long after, is you're doing a real good job of making yourself unattractive. You're doing a real good job of making yourself unattractive. So that's kind of a little of a diagnostic tool there, right? You want to be conscious about this. You want to be conscious about this. And if you apply this framework, it'll get your wife and other people around you thinking about you in good, positive ways. And that is a fundamental part of being attractive. You got to get inside their head. All right, gentlemen, I hope you are well. Any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the description below. Ciao.